Today I'm going to show you exactly how I'm investing in 2026 in a way that's simple and easy to understand, especially for real people like you and me who want to invest and reach financial freedom, but we still want to travel, go on holidays, eat brunch every now and again, and just enjoy life along the way. I'll be showing you where I actually choose to park my short-term money, which is money that I need in the next 5 years, how I invest for the long term, and how I set up automations to make it super easy. Thank you so much to Perla for sponsoring this video. And if you'd like to try Perla for yourself, you can use my code Queenie for a $20 credit. So sit back, relax, maybe grab a drink of your choice. Today I'm drinking this tea that I got at my cousin's wedding. It's really nice. And let's dive into this video. If you're new here, hi, I'm Queenie and I'm a licensed personal finance creator, meaning I have a license to give general financial advice. But anything discussed on this channel is general in nature and doesn't take into account your personal situation. You can read my full financial services guide in the description. So first, let's talk about the 5-year rule. Here's a really simple decision tree that I use when I decide whether I should save money or invest it. If I have some money and I need it within the next 5 years, let's say for example I'm planning a holiday or a wedding or I want to buy a new car, then I like to keep it saved in a bank account. But if I have some spare money and I don't really need it in the next 5 years, then I invest it instead. This is because investments are really amazing long term, but in the short term they can be a little bit moody. So I like to keep a stash of 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved in cash in a bank account. Before I had a mortgage, I used to put this in a high interest savings account, but now that I do have a mortgage, I've recently changed all of my savings accounts into offset accounts. This is a game changer and something that I honestly wish I did sooner. If you do have a mortgage, I highly recommend looking into getting an offset account, because the great thing about offset accounts is you can basically save interest off your mortgage, and the interest that you can save on your mortgage is generally higher than what you can get in a high interest savings account. Plus, another benefit is you don't need to pay tax on the money that you save in your offset account. Because you're saving interest from the bank, not earning interest, you don't have to pay tax on it. So it's another really great benefit. But if you don't have a mortgage, highly recommend looking into getting a high interest savings account. This is a really amazing way that you can get your money to work harder for you, even if it is just kept at a savings account. I actually recently made a video comparing some of the best high interest savings accounts. So pretty much any money outside of my emergency fund goes straight into my investments. I've been investing for the past 9 years now, and it's just amazing to see how much your wealth can compound, especially if you are investing consistently. And I just love the freedom and choice and flexibility that investing gives me. Even though I don't touch my investments for 5 years or more, it's still nice knowing that I could sell down those investments and buy something whenever I want to with that money. It's just a really satisfying feeling. So now let's get into the real reason why I clicked on this video. This is exactly how I'm planning to invest this year in 2026. I like to keep it simple by investing in ETFs, but at the same time, I also like investing in property, and this year I'm planning to buy another investment property. I like to follow a core and satellite approach in my portfolio. So the bulk of my spare cash is going into core ETFs. I love how my money is diversified in an ETF, and it's pretty much just set and forget. Some popular ETF combos are VTS and VEU. VTS is the Vanguard US Total Stock Market ETF. And this ETF basically covers the total US stock market. You can combine this ETF with VEU, which is the Vanguard All World excluding US ETF. And this ETF basically invests in the rest of the world and it excludes the US. So by investing in this combo, you get exposure to the US and the rest of the world without them overlapping. If you want, you could also swap VTS with IVV instead. And IVV invests in the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies on the US stock exchange. Another popular ETF combo is VAS and VGS. VAS is the Vanguard Australian Shares ETF, and this ETF invests in the top 300 companies on the Australian Stock Exchange. And you can combine this ETF with VGS, which is the Vanguard International Shares ETF. This ETF invests in international companies excluding Australia. So by investing in this pair, you get exposure to Australia and the rest of the world without them overlapping. And for an ethical combo, there's VETH and VESG. VETH is similar to VAS, but with an ethical focus. And VESG is similar to VGS, but it has an ethical focus too. So these ETFs screen out companies with a significant involvement in fossil fuels, nuclear power, alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, gambling, weapons, and more. So I like to keep ETFs like this in the core of my portfolio, which is about 90% of my ETF portfolio. And then with the satellite, I like to invest a bit more spicy. So with 5% of my portfolio, I like to invest in more thematic ETFs. An example of a thematic ETF is HACK, which is the Global Cybersecurity ETF. This ETF does have a higher management fee, but I do like how this ETF gives me exposure to some companies in the cybersecurity space without me having to look through and do heaps of research on these companies individually. And it has had some really amazing performance over the past couple of years. Since its inception around 10 years ago, it's returned about 17% per year. Another thematic ETF that I like is NDQ, which invests in the top 100 companies on the NASDAQ. This is a very tech-heavy ETF, and it has also performed really well over the past couple of years. Over the past 10 years, it's performed at 20% per year. And another ETF is Asia, which is the Asia Technology Tigers ETF. This one has had pretty big swings over the past 10 years, but I still like investing in it long term. Since its inception, it's returned 14% per year, but over the past 5 years, it has underperformed at 6.7% per year. So the next part of my investing plan for 2026 is buying another investment property. For context, I currently have 2 properties. One is the one that I live in at the moment, and the other property that we own is a 2-bedroom apartment in Sydney. Even though we didn't purchase that apartment initially as an investment property, it has performed pretty well over the past couple of years. Just to give you the numbers, because I do like these breakdowns and I find them quite juicy. We bought a 2-bedroom apartment in 2019 for $500,000. We lived in it for a few years and now it's rented out for $675 per week. We also did spend about $40,000 in renovations, renovating the kitchen, bathroom, flooring and lighting as well. And I just got ChatGPT to come up with these numbers about what the rental return has been and if it's been a good investment, because I'm curious myself. So if we look at the capital growth rate, it's appreciated at about 4.9% per year if we do include the renovations that we spent to the purchase price of the property. And then in terms of the rental yield, it's currently at 4.88% per year. But if you calculate the rental yield of how much we initially purchased the apartment for, it would be 6.5% per year, which is pretty good. So I've been looking into buying another investment property, and I've been thinking about buying somewhere in Melbourne, mainly because the prices are just so much cheaper compared to Sydney. And I feel like I know it a lot more than the other capital cities. My mom and her family is actually from Melbourne and she currently lives there. And for context, she actually bought an apartment in the city for around $400,000, which is just crazy to me because you can actually rent that apartment for about $600 a week. I'm not looking at buying an apartment in the city because I have heard that there is a bit of an oversupply and that's the reason why they're so cheap. But I have been looking at Melbourne in general. I'm not sure if we want to buy a house or a townhouse or an apartment, but I guess we'll wait and see and maybe even get the help of a buyer's agent to help us find the right place. But I do feel like the prices in Melbourne are just so affordable compared to Sydney, and yeah, could be a really great buy. But let me know down in the comments below what you think about Melbourne to buy in 2026. And another thing that I'm looking at investing in more this year is basically just dollar cost averaging into crypto. I only invest about 5% of my portfolio in crypto, but I do like it and I like the idea of it long term. And keeping just 5% of my portfolio in crypto, it also helps me limit the risk because I feel like one day it could be worth crazy amounts of money or it could be worth nothing at the same time. So here's exactly step by step how I invest. If you have the skills to buy something on your phone, then you have the skills to make an investment. I'll show you just how easy it is. So the first step is to pick a platform. I like using Perla and I've been using them for the past 4 years. I really love how Perla is an app that is designed for long-term investors compared to day traders. The user interface is really easy to understand, and I also love their automated investing feature. They're also a CHESS-sponsored broker, which basically means that when you buy shares on the Australian Stock Exchange, you actually own them in your own name. So just in case anything happens with Perla, you know that you actually own your shares in your own name, so it's really easy to get access to them. They charge a $6.50 brokerage fee, but you can also prepay your credits for $5.50 instead. And if you'd like to try Perla for yourself, you can use my code Queenie for a $20 credit. So this is exactly how it works. To deposit money, I simply click here, deposit cash. Here I can put in how much I would like to deposit, for example, $1,000. And then I simply click on next, and then I copy this pay ID. I go into my banking app, and then I basically transfer $1,000 into Perla. Once the money lands in my account, I can make an investment, and I'll show you how. So I simply click here, ASX Invest. Here I can search for the ETF I would like to purchase, for example, VESG. To buy it, I simply click buy, and I put in how much I would like to invest, for example, $1,000. And then to buy it, I simply click on next and then confirm. Pearler also has this really amazing auto invest feature, which I just love because you can basically set and forget your finances and set up an automatic deposit to invest with Pearler. So now I want to talk about compound interest and how this will actually be life-changing for you, and it's also really motivating to know that the hardest part is actually starting, and then once you start investing, it just gets easier and easier to make more money. So I've been tracking my net worth for the past few years, and it actually took around 4 years to get to my first $100,000. And this is Pablo and I being extremely frugal. So when we would go out with friends to cafes and restaurants, we wouldn't order anything because we wanted to save money. We wouldn't buy anything non-essential, and we really carefully budgeted our groceries to make sure that we did hit our number of getting to $100,000 so that we could buy our first apartment. But what's crazy to me is now that we've reached our first $100,000, just how much easier it has been to go from $100,000 to over $1 million. In fact, it took the same amount of time to go from $0 to $100,000 than it did to go from $100,000 to $1 million. And that basically just shows you compound interest in action. Here are some really cool and motivating graphs. Let's say you managed to invest $100 per month for 40 years at an 8% annual return. After 40 years, you'd have $351,000. Now let's say you invest $1,000 per month for 40 years with an 8% annual return. After 40 years, that's $3.5 million. And if you did the same $1,000 investment for 50 years instead of 40 years, then that would give you $7.9 million, which is just crazy. What's really interesting is that by doing it for 50 years, you get $7.9 million, which is an extra $4.4 million, which is achieved in the last decade alone. And that really highlights the importance of investing early. This isn't to say that you need to go back in time and start investing when you're 10 years old, but it really does go to show you that it's not really about how much you start investing, it's more about the time that you're invested for. There's this really interesting graph that shows you Warren Buffett's net worth over the past couple of years, and you can really see that he made most of his money in the last couple of years. His wealth literally doubled from age 83 to 92, but it's like he almost made no money for most of his life. So that really shows you compound interest in action. And something interesting about Warren Buffett is he actually started investing when he was 10 years old. And now he's in his 90s, he's literally had decades and decades of experience and compound interest working its magic for him. There's a famous quote that I love, which is, "The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now." Thanks so much for watching this video all the way through. Your secret word is do it. So write us a comment with the word do it in it, just so we know you watched this video all the way through. And also let us know how you're investing for 2026. I'm really curious. Thank you. Bye.